So I was part of a webinar video call with folks from the College Board, and got some updates on and more information about the exam. Just to give you an idea, now you should also be receiving something in your email from them. It should be there by now, if not maybe later today, but they said they sent it out last night. So you should have gotten something from the College Board. You will be getting additional updates from them. I know you'll get one should get one on Monday of next week, but let me go over the highlights of what I picked up last night. So we talked about this before, but you'll receive an e-ticket by email from the College Board for each exam that you're signed up for. So if you're signed up for AP Lit and Stats and I don't know, AP Biology, any of those, whatever you're signed up for, you'll get a separate e-ticket for each one of those. And all you'll do, that'll come in the email, and 30 minutes before your exam time, all you need to do is click on the link that says start exam or something like that. You will have to pass through several security protocols before you're admitted into the exam room. And so they strongly recommend that you connect 30 minutes before your exam time. If you wait till 5 minutes before, you will not have time to get through the protocols. Once you get through, you'll still go into the exam room, but the test will have already started. And so you will have less time to work on your tests. The e-ticket is non-transferable. So if you try to forward it to somebody, that will trigger some of the security protocols and your ticket will be canceled. Okay, so you have to be the one who opens your ticket from your email address. Now, if for some reason you do not receive it by email, you can still pick it up at myap.collegeboard.org. And I've written all of the websites that I can think of that I have seen on any updates that I've been getting that you might need. I hope you can read them. If you can't, then I'll type them up and send them out to you. But your e-ticket will be available to you on your specific myap.collegeboard.org website. You just log in, go there, use your login, and it should have all your e-tickets listed as well. Just as a reminder, if for some reason you get sick, you eat some bad sushi the night before the test and you're sick on the day of the exam, there is a makeup exam for the stats test on June the 4th. All of the other exams will also have makeup dates, and that schedule should be available to you. I think it's probably right here, College Board or cb.org, AP Exam Day Docs, I think is where it is. If you can't find it, let me know, and I have a copy. I'll post it for you. So on Monday of next week, on May the 4th, you will have a chance to take an exam demo. And the exam demo is good for almost any of the AP exams. I think if you're doing an AP music class or some of the other classes that require you to submit a portfolio, it's not the same, but I don't think that applies to any of our AP classes. So any of the AP classes you can get at Logan County, stats or chemistry or AP Lit, whatever. You can take this exam demo, and it is not a real exam, but it does require you to do all of the exam things that you'll need to do in terms of logging in. I think there's sample security. I'm not 100% sure about that, but I know that even I can take it. So on Monday, I'm going to go through it and see what it's like. But you will also be able to try all three of the methods for submitting your answers. You can type your answer in a separate document, and then you can cut and paste into the exam window. You can type it in a separate document and attach that document to an exam window, or you can handwrite your result and take a picture of it with your phone, and then submit that with your phone. Now, they do have a word of caution for the math tests, calculus, computer science, and stats. Using your phone, you might find that to be a bit of a disadvantage because the length of the question, and that you may, on your phone, you may have to be scrolling up and down to read the question. So they're going to encourage you to use your laptop to respond on a math exam. Now, here's the thing. There will be shortcuts for you to type mathematical symbols and equations that will be available to you. Now, what I'm gathering is that since there will be so much typing, I don't think this is going to be a heavy calculation intensive response. Now, I don't know how that's going to work, but for example, the questions we're going to talk about at the end of class today, they're all very easy to type answers to. And so I think it will make sense to you as you get into the exam. But they did give us, encourage us math teachers to warn you that you might find using your phone a bit cumbersome. Now, that doesn't mean you can't use it. And for me, honestly, I'd be a little bit nervous about having to type my results for a math test, but they didn't say you couldn't use it. It is one of the three acceptable ways to submit your answers. So, you know, if you're planning to handwrite your response and then snap a picture with your phone, you can do that. Now, you can also upload documents from your laptop. So if you can get a picture from your phone to your laptop really, really quickly, then that might work for you as well. But in any event, just a word of caution, you might find using your phone a bit cumbersome for the stats test. You can use any browser commonly in place, although they do say Chrome is preferred. But Safari, Microsoft Edge, Firefox, all of those browsers will work. Internet Explorer, I had to laugh a little bit. Internet Explorer will not work. So if that's your browser, shame on you. but also you need to go download, and you can download Chrome for free. I mean, I've got a Dell laptop that I'm talking to you on right now, but I downloaded Google Chrome, and it works fine. I don't have a minute's trouble. If you do have to download Chrome, make sure you set it as your default browser. That way you won't have any trouble. You may be wondering what happens if the power goes out or my battery dies or something happens while I'm taking the test. Don't call me. You can call me. I'll be glad to remind you and kind of help you not panic. But if you do have something going on after you've started the test that causes you to have a negative test environment, little brother or sister won't leave you alone, the dog keeps barking, I don't know, whatever it is, you get sick, then you should find these instructions somewhere in the stuff that they send you. But you'll log into collegeboard.org/request makeup, and you'll need to have your e-ticket handy because there will be information from that e-ticket that you'll have to enter. And then you can describe what your problem is, what your situation was, and they'll take that under consideration. And if they agree or find your situation to be a negative testing environment, they'll reissue you or issue you a ticket for the makeup day on June 4th. And there are some events that are going to certainly be approved. For example, becoming sick during the test. If you put that on there, then they will certainly approve it. Interruptions from family or outside influences will certainly be approved. Some sort of technology failure, dead battery, power outage, loss of internet connection, all of those things will be immediately approved. One of the things that will not be approved is if you request a makeup and your reason is because I just ran out of time or I didn't finish the test in time to submit it. That will not be approved. When you take your test, there are two questions. When the test begins, there'll be a timer and it'll count down. You'll see that window on your screen, and at 5 minutes, it will warn you or give you a notice that there's 5 minutes left and that you need to begin submitting your answers. If you do not click the submit button before that timer runs out, you've gone past the point of no return. There is no way to submit your response. So make sure you get that thing submitted before the timer runs out. Also, if you have multiple pages, let's say you are taking pictures with your phone and you have multiple pages, let's say you have 3 pages to submit, do not click submit until you've got all 3 pages attached. There should be a different button for attaching a photo and as opposed to submitting your answer. So when you're attaching documents, do not click the submit button. That closes the door and locks it forever. And if you still had other pages to attach, then you're in a bit of trouble. I told you before that there were 2 questions. One of them is 20 minutes with 5 minutes to submit your answer. No, 25 minutes with 5 minutes to submit your answer. And I also told you the question 2 would be 20 minutes long. That was a mistake. They have corrected that, and on the documents on their webpage, it should say the second question is 15 minutes long with 5 minutes to submit. So again, don't panic. They reiterated many times that there will be multiple parts to each question. You do not have to respond to all the parts to get a 5 on the exam. In fact, their advice is this: it is better to answer a few questions or a few parts well and thoroughly than all of them in a partial way. In other words, focus on the parts of the question that you know well, answer them thoroughly, and then work on the other ones. Okay, so the way they're going to score it will allow you to certainly get a 3 or a 4, but even a 5, even if you don't even respond to certain parts of the question. So just remember, if this were a regular testing environment, you would have the multiple choice section to demonstrate your knowledge, as well as several open response questions. Here, they're looking at every opportunity you have to demonstrate what you know. And so the emphasis is on being thorough with the questions that you know well, or the parts that you know well. There will only be 2 questions, but there will be multiple parts. Answer the ones that you know thoroughly, and then move on to the others. And it may be that you can answer them out of sequence. You may be able, you don't have to necessarily know the answer to B to answer part C, etc. So read all the parts and answer them thoroughly. If something happens to the exam window in your browser, do not click the refresh button or do not click the back button. Go back to your e-ticket. And I'm thinking there's going to be some sort of instruction or some sort of button to click on your e-ticket. But they cautioned you, do not click the refresh button or the back button on their screen. Now, what they suggest is that if you're using a laptop to respond, that you open 2 screens side by side, and I'll show you what that means in just a minute. 2 screens side by side. One screen will have the test question, and the other screen will have, say, Google Docs or Microsoft Word or whatever software you want to type your answer in. So that way you can be typing over here and you can be reading the question over on the other side. And then when you get ready to cut and paste your answer and copy it into their browser, you can do that, or when you get ready to upload the document. Now, they did suggest that you kind of prepare your document ahead of time. And I think in the exam demo, they'll give you advice as to what to do. But you want to have 2 documents, whether they're Word or Google Doc or whatever. You want to have them already opened and saved as blank documents. And you might even title them Question 1, AP Stats Exam, Question 2, AP Stats Exam. And then at the top of that page, you want to have your name and I think it's your e-ticket number already typed, so that you don't have to worry about that on exam day. So you can prepare kind of a template for your response, and then just open that document, type it, and then either cut and paste or upload that whole document. Either one is fine. It does not matter which way you go. If you're going to be handwriting, like I did my notes here, you're going to want to put at the top of the page You're going to want to put your name, and I think it's your e-ticket number, or it may be some sort of student ID number or something like that. But you're going to want to prepare your responses ahead of time, just so that you have the maximum amount of time available for the test. I will let me share with you a document. I'll be sending you this after class today. And you may be receiving this anyway. You may have received this anyway, but I'll send it to you via Classroom when we're done. But this is your exam day checklist, okay? Here's another website, collegeboard.org, AP 2020, testing guide, videos, and other resources. I'm going to talk about these videos in just a second. But there's some fill in the blank stuff here at the top that once you get your e-ticket, you want to fill it in. And then just here are some check boxes for the test, okay? So am I ready for the test? And then what to do during the exam, after the exam, all of that stuff. That's all available here. I'll send that to you when we're done. Now, I mentioned videos, and I haven't watched the videos, but I do want to point you to their YouTube page. I think you can go to YouTube and search for AP Exams 2020. And they've already given videos about the exams, how to prep, an exam walkthrough, and live review sessions, etc. You can subscribe to their page to get updates. But if you are interested, I would encourage you to go and watch these things. I'm not going to take time here to do that, but I think you can do that on your own and just see what's available from their webpage. Let's see, and I think yeah, I think that's all I want to share today, unless you have questions. So let me go back here. Any questions from you guys at this point before we get started chit-chatting?
So for the pictures, would you be able to put like pictures on the doc?
Yeah, if you've got time to transfer, you mean like take the picture with your phone and then email it to yourself and cut and paste it into a document? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah, there's no prohibition against that. It's just a matter of how much time is it going to take you to get all of that done, you know? So if you can snap that picture and get it to your laptop quickly, then I would encourage you to do that. That's probably the easiest way to handle writing your answer. But it's just going to take time. But if that's what you want to do, there's no reason you can't do that. Okay. Good question. Any others?
Okay, I don't know if I missed this or not, but did you say that there is going to be like a mock AP exam online that where we could like figure out how to do stuff right? Or
Yeah, I won't call it a mock exam. They call it an exam demo, and that will be available to you next Monday on May the 4th.
Alrighty.
So you should get an email from them that gives you a link to go to the exam demo, and I think there's going to be a prompt that you respond to, and it might be, it's not going to be content related. So the demo is applicable to all the tests, whether it's lit or chemistry or stats or whatever. So you don't have to do the demo for each of your classes, but it will lead you through how to upload your document, how to cut and paste, how to use your phone. As I was discussing with Addie at the beginning, if you have a slow internet bandwidth or a low bandwidth coming into your house, this exam demo should be a good test of whether that's going to work or not. And so you can try it from home. If that doesn't work, then you might need to go to, like Addie said, a church or your folks' office or something, some other place where you can get a better connection, grandma, grandpa's, somebody where you can get a better connection. But this exam demo will give you the opportunity to practice all of those things that you need to do. And you can do the demo as many times as you want. There's no limit on how many times you practice.
Okay.
But that won't, I don't think they're sending that link until Monday.
Gotcha.
Okay. All right. Any others?
How long did you say each part lasted, each question?
Okay. Let me pull up, hold on. Let me share. Let me get to the page first, and then I'll share it with you. Or put it up here on the screen. And honestly, you should be receiving something that gives you this info. But just in case you don't, I know I have it. Let me get to it. Yeah, here we go. Okay. All right, so let me turn on the screen. Okay, so for the stats exam, it's over here on the right. 2 questions. The first one is 30 minutes. You have 25 minutes to answer your question, 5 minutes to upload. And then the second one will be 15 minutes for answer and 5 minutes to submit. Okay. Now, they're telling me the English and history exams, there's only 1 question. So you have 45 minutes to respond and 5 minutes to upload. So I assume that English includes AP Lit. I'm assuming that. I don't know how many of you are planning to take the AP Lit exam, but for us, we're over here on the right-hand side. We've got 2 questions. Log in 30 or check in 30 minutes before the start date. And then the first question is essentially 30 minutes, but 5 of it, you should reserve the last 5 minutes to submit your answer. Once you submit, you'll be in a waiting room, and then question 2 will pop up on your screen, and you've got 5 minutes for there, and then 15 minutes for that part and 5 minutes to submit. Okay. There was another slide here that I did want to show you really, really quick. Okay. Yeah. What do you need for the test? Stats. Okay. Okay. So required, you'll need the AP Stats formula sheet and tables. Okay. So I have sent you the formula sheet, I think, and tables. Everything you need in terms of formulas and tables are in your textbook. And so if you just want to rely on your textbook, that's fine. You will be allowed to use your textbook. There's no prohibition against using your textbook or any notes. So your class notes that you've taken all year, you're welcome to use those during the exam. There is a keyboarding tip sheet for AP Stats exams, and I haven't seen that yet. I haven't figured out exactly where it is, but you guys should have a link and something they send you that gets you to this tip sheet, or keyboarding tip sheet that will give you an idea of how to type in the symbols and things like that. Like if you want to include X bar in your response, how do you do that? You're certainly permitted to use a calculator, and the scientific calculators you have are absolutely okay. Quite honestly, I'm being told that just the 4-function calculator on your phone should be adequate for the test, but you're more than welcome to use the TI calculators you took home with you. If for some reason the calculator you've got is not working, it's got a cracked screen or a button is sticking, let me know. I'll get you another one. I want you to have one that you're comfortable with if you want to use it. So if your calculator is not up to speed, then make sure I'll be happy to get you one. I would also encourage you, make sure you put in fresh batteries. I think they're AAA batteries. If AAA batteries are a difficulty for you, let me know. I'll get you a set of batteries. Okay. And so there are these notes should be available to you on examday.docs, so you can go and look through the other tests that you might be taking to get updates on what you need. I won't spend time here to do that, but I think you can go to cb.org.examday.docs, and that'll give you everything you need for your other tests. Okay. All right. Any more questions? We good? Okay. Let's see. We've been at this a good while. Let me share with something with you. I meant to share this at the beginning, but I forgot. So what have we been doing for the last 9 months? Well, you can see what Mark Twain thinks about statistics. There are lies, there are damn lies, and then there's statistics. So that's what we've been working on. And quite honestly, as we get into these significance and hypothesis tests, this is where folks who are unfamiliar with statistics can, in fact, either intentionally or inadvertently lie about data that's presented in a statistical format. It is easy to get things confused. Here's what I want to do. I don't want to hold you too much longer, but I am going to introduce, we won't do any questions, example questions today. We'll just start off with those tomorrow, but I am going to introduce the topic of interpreting p-values to you. And so if you're going to follow on in your textbook, you can turn to page 533, or you can pull up your the notes that I sent you. You can pull up the notes I sent you earlier today. So hypothesis testing, the null hypothesis states the claim that we're seeking evidence against. Shucks. Let me do this a different way. There we go. There's my pointer. Okay. So what we're looking to find is evidence against our null hypothesis. And this p-value that we've been talking about is the probability of the strength of the evidence against it. So in other words, when we calculate this p-value, all we're really doing is calculating a probability. And we're calculating a probability on the standard normal curve, just like we have been all year long. We can use table A and a z-score. We'll see how to calculate that. Or honestly, you can use the normal CDF function on your calculator. Either one of those is fine for calculating this p-value. Quite honestly, for some reason, it is more evident to me when I use the table A, but I got to believe that is just my preference and the way that I learned statistics. There were no calculators with functions on them that would do this, and I always use tables. So if you're more comfortable with using the calculator, then do it. This definition here is key. You want to be able to highlight this, and you want to understand this one back and forward. The probability that the statistic would take a value as extreme or more extreme than the one actually observed is the p-value of the test, assuming HO is true, or assuming the null hypothesis is true. And here's the key right here. The smaller the p-value, the stronger the evidence against the null hypothesis. Okay, so if we calculate a probability that is really small, if this p-value comes out to be really small, then we have strong evidence against the null hypothesis. Now, the question about whether you reject the null hypothesis is a matter of the significance level of the test. That's a decision that you as the statistician or as a student now, the question will tell you, do we reject the null hypothesis at a significance level of 95% or 99%? So a small p-value is strong evidence. Whether you reject the null hypothesis or not depends on the significance level that you're interested in. So small p-values are evidence against the null hypothesis. What that means is the observed result, in other words, the p-hat or the x-bar that you calculated, is unlikely to occur when the null hypothesis is true. Large p-values fail to give convincing evidence against the null hypothesis because they say this result is likely to occur when the null hypothesis is true. And remember, you never make a statement that we accept the null hypothesis. What we say is there is no evidence to reject the null hypothesis, or the p-value fails to give convincing evidence against the null hypothesis. And we'll see that in plenty of practice questions here probably later tomorrow. So I just want to get you started with one simple example, and then we'll call it for the day. I don't want to drag this out too much longer for you. But so you remember we talked yesterday about the job satisfaction study, and our null hypothesis was that the mean of the scores, the mean difference between self-paced minus machine-paced was going to be 0. Our alternate hypothesis was that it was just not equal to 0. It was either less than 0 or greater than 0, but not equal to. So when we calculated our score, we got an X bar of 17. So that's our observed value. And the standard deviation of the sample was 60. And then when we do the calculation, and we'll walk through this calculation at another time, but let's just kind of jump to the answer first to help us understand what's going on. We got a p-value of 0.23. So what does that mean for the null hypothesis in that result? In this particular case, the null hypothesis means that the difference between self-paced and machine-paced for the entire population is 0. In other words, the score for the self-paced and the scores for the machine-paced should be equal. The only way for this difference to be 0 is if this equals that. So what we're testing here is that the scores for the self-paced survey should be roughly equal to the scores for the machine-paced survey. So if the null hypothesis is true, then we would conclude that the workers don't favor one environment over the other, and that's what we're setting out to test. Okay, so an outcome that occurs so often as what we got here, 0.23, which is almost 1 out of 4. An outcome that occurs so often by chance when the null hypothesis is true is not convincing evidence against the null hypothesis. So here's our concluding statement. We fail to reject the null hypothesis that the mean is 0. In other words, we have no evidence to say that there is a preference of one sort of automation over the other, self-paced versus machine-paced. And again, notice the argument, or notice the statements here. Things like not convincing evidence against the null hypothesis or fail to reject the null hypothesis, okay? Don't ever in your responses write in such a way that you would give the reader the idea that you are accepting the null hypothesis or that there is evidence to prove that it's correct or true. You always want to kind of back into the statement, there's no convincing evidence against it, and so we fail to reject. Now, if this p-value were small, then our conclusion would be different. We would say there is evidence to reject the null hypothesis. Let's go on to the next one and talk about the statistical significance. Okay, so what is the line that's drawn in the sand that allows us to decide in favor of the alternative hypothesis or to decide to fail to reject the null. That's this significance test. Let me, so when we fail to reject, it doesn't mean that we accept it. And don't use language implying that you do, okay? So here's where we're going to leave off today. If the p-value is small, then we would reject the null hypothesis and conclude in favor of the alternate. If the p-value is large, then we fail to reject the null hypothesis and cannot conclude in favor of the alternate hypothesis. For tomorrow, we'll start here and I'll give you some examples. But I got to be honest, this blue box here is, you're going to, like I've said many times in class, you're going to have to take this to your thinking spot and just kind of mull over this and think through it a little bit. I did, however, find something that might be useful in remembering that blue box, and maybe you'll like this. Okay, so when the p-value is low, you're gonna fail to accept the null hypothesis. When it's low, you're going to find in favor of the alternate hypothesis. Okay. So when I saw this, I thought, oh, that makes sense, and that helps you to kind of remember it. But honestly, this blue box is the way you want to begin. You want to frame your responses. Once you calculate this p-value, this is how the language that you want to, the language you want to begin using. And I've got to be honest, there's a rather crude statement that echoes around statistics classes. I learned it when I took statistics. And it sticks with me to this day, and I'll go ahead and share it with you, and I'll ask your forgiveness because it's a little bit crude, but here's the way I learned it. When the p-value is small, the hoe must go. Okay, so you have to reject the null hypothesis when the p-value is small. Or some others would say it, if the p-value is low, reject that hoe. Again, it's pretty crude. I warned you. I'm not advocating in favor of that kind of language, but I got to be honest, it was a way to help me remember when I was a student going through this. So I'll leave it there. Okay, any questions? Again, tomorrow we'll focus more on some examples, but we've already been at this almost an hour, and I don't want to keep you any longer because I know some of you may have another class coming up here shortly. All right, any questions? Okay, so today I'll go ahead and send you today's video because people who couldn't make the class will be interested in the notes about the test. I'll send you the checklist, things like that. But in terms of anything to respond to today, just consider it a gift, I guess. So
Thank you.
hey, how about that? I'm not.
Yes, thank you.
All right. So enjoy the rest of the day, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Have a good one.
See ya.